How's it going, everyone? The Trout91 here for another Call of Duty World War II video. Previously, I gave you my first impressions after the first weekend of the beta. I then followed up with my second impressions after the second weekend of the beta, and with all that wrapped up, said and done, and a lot of game time under my belt, I'm going to give you my final impressions and hopefully answer the question you've all been waiting for and asking me for: is Call of Duty back, and should I buy this game? Now, whenever someone asks me, what does this game feel like? What would you say it's most like as far as Call of Duty games go? I always say it's basically like Advanced Warfare on the ground. And that's because they use pretty much a similar or the same engine as they did in Advanced Warfare. It looks the same, it feels the same, it plays exactly as it did in AW. If you ever played the classic AW mode, which was jetpacks not being allowed, and you played Advanced Warfare that way, as I did actually a few times, it's very much like that. And there was a lot wrong with the engine in Advanced Warfare alongside the netcoding, and that was made worse, I feel like, because of the jetpacks and simply the speed of the game. In this one, it's not as bad because it is a lot slower and it's all on the ground, so you don't have to worry about someone flying into the air and being completely untouchable, because it just seemed like Hitboxes did not follow the actual character model, and that, for me, was a massive problem with that game and what made it so frustrating at times. Now, for this game, I would say that the same problems are still there in the engine. The same mechanical problems are still present, but they're not as bad because it's on the ground and it's slower and people can't go flying into the air. When they are jumping around and strafing, there are a few problems as far as the hitbox goes, but it's not too bad in general. Sometimes there are certain guns that perform a lot better on certain connections than other ones. I think an example of that is the M1 Garand compared to the M1A1 Carbine. I think the M1A1 Carbine is a gun that you will struggle to use on a host or on a connection that is not very good. Now that's out of the way, let's get on to the nitty-gritty things. Now, first up is the maps. I have to say, the 4 maps we're given, I didn't actually play the war game mode and see what maps were there, because I'm more of a TDM kind of guy. I like to play TDM, I like to go solo, mostly because I play by myself. I wouldn't say they're amazing. They were okay a lot of the time. They were probably going to be playing better on specific game modes rather than the game mode that I like to play, which is Team Deathmatch. Like, I think this map that I'm currently playing, Aken, I think it's called, would be pretty good for search and destroy. Now, I don't think that's too much to worry, because this is the 4 maps out of potentially 12 or 13 that usually launches. I think Advanced Warfare launched with about 12 to 13 maps, and obviously there'll be like 4 DLCs, which will have 3 to 4 maps. Well, I say, is it 3 to 4 maps? It's usually like 3 or 4 maps, and then maybe a zombies map on the side. So there is a lot of hope, and you never know, this could be the 4 worst maps. I've seen, I think there was one other map in the showcase they did for this game, and there's a few others that we've had little looks at. So I don't think it's the end of the world, and they could easily be better maps than these ones. And like I said, if these are the worst maps, I think we're actually in a good place, to be honest with you. I just feel like a lot of the maps needed adjusting to accommodate for more playstyles. They felt very limited on what you could get away with. I didn't really feel like the 4 maps we had were great for things like sniping. I didn't feel like they were fantastic for SMGing all the time. I think just in general, they could have improved the flow of the gameplay and get everyone involved in a match more and stop the richer getting richer. If they just added another playing area to it, or bigger areas, or even an extra corridor like this corridor here that goes up towards the staircase, just falls back down. They could have made that go down this building and actually make it easier for teams that spawn on this side. I'm going to say it's towards the Axis side, because of all the flags on that building. I don't know what to call that, the Colosseums and things like that, and this bus that I'm standing at. It makes it a lot easier for teams to actually get out of those spawn traps, which I found were quite prominent. I think, actually, now that my spawns have flipped onto this side, I get locked down here for quite a while, and it makes it very difficult for me to push out, especially with a team that isn't really playing very well and is not helping me push out. So I just feel like these 4 maps could have easily been improved by a couple of changes, and I've said this multiple times. I think in my live streams, I've said this in a couple of the videos I've done about how I would improve each map. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they just needed a little bit extra to it, and it could have been really good. I feel like because we've had such big maps because of the jetpacking and stuff and how quickly you can get across the map. They've compressed a lot of the action to try and make people have head-on gunfights, and in some ways that's actually backfired. They made them too cramped, and they are still quite big maps, but there's not a lot of room for maneuver. It's quite hard to flank on some of the maps, especially this one, which I'm not a particular fan with. I like different gameplay styles to actually be very successful, and although it's nice to have maps that benefit certain things more than others, at the same time, I don't feel like that's a big thing all around. I don't know, maybe I'm just waffling on here. Let's jump onto the weapons. Now, I think some weapons obviously need tuning. The STG is definitely the best gun on the game. Well, some will say differently. I really like the M1 Garand, and I'll probably use this more than anything when it comes out. And I don't think it's going to be one of those guns that gets nerfed, because it almost becomes pointless if it does get nerfed. And it can compete with a lot of other ones. I say for the most part, though, they are pretty good. They all seem to compete well with each other. You're never really going to be in a position where you can't get by. I know that the pre-order bonus lets you unlock something permanently, and that kind of creates a bit of an uproar about the fact that, oh, well, someone could unlock the best gun straight away, and it makes it a bit pointless ranking up and exploring how the game goes. But then again, if you don't pre-order it and don't get that bonus, I think you're going to be okay with the weapons that are available. There's some really good guns that come straight out of the box. At least they were in the beta. I don't know if they changed the order, because I think they changed the order for games like Black Ops 3. I think the Razorback was something that was unlocked at level 20, and then it wasn't unlocked until level 50 or something ridiculous later on into the game when it finally launched. I would say there's a lack of variation in the guns' roles and their uniqueness. Like, I feel because we've gone to a futuristic era, it's easier for us to make up guns and like their roles. And although they're modeled after real-life guns, they do have things like, you know, if you fire longer, the rate of fire increases, or the first few bullets do more damage than the rest of them, or the recoil increases depending on how long you shoot for. Things like that. Or burst fire, or single fire, or automatic. And I have to say, a good example of this is like the PPSH and the Thompson. I feel like they're very similar guns, very high rate of fire, very good damage, very good up close, not as great at long range. But an example of a difference for me is like the Grease gun, which is very good at long range as a submachine gun, has very high damage, has pretty low recoil. But then on the opposite side, you've got the WAF that is really good up close, but really poor at range, has a lot of recoil, very fast rate of fire, but has low damage. You know, that's two guns that are kind of like polar opposites, and I think like a lot of the guns are very similar in how they feel, how they act, how they move, and their purposes, I suppose. So I think it's limited because it's a historical game in World War II, but I'd like to see them try and make a few changes to kind of make them all have their own purpose, or make them a bit more specific, because like another gun like the Type 100, low damage, low recoil, very good at range. So I don't know, swings and roundabouts. I think there's only so much you can do as far as making them unique. I think getting the balance right is probably top priority, and I suppose that does also come with the fact that giving it that unique role will also play into how much you buff or nerf a gun as well. I've talked about the engine and net coding. The engine's okay, it could be better. I think if this was a tryout game, it would be far, far more enjoyable. The net coding is still off. There are some really annoying kills that come about, but I suppose that's Call of Duty sometimes, and online gaming, you're never going to be particularly happy with what happens. As far as the game mechanics go, I'd like to see the option to slide on the floor. Perhaps an option to choose between the slide and the dolphin dive would be kind of cool. I think it'd be quite hard to coordinate the two onto a controller at the same time. I think if it was on PC, you could obviously do them both whenever you wanted. But it'd be quite cool, because there are times where I'd like to slide and shoot someone, and then there'll be times where I'm trying to get away and dolphin dive out of the way. So giving you the option to choose between the two would be really nice. I think there are a lot of areas of the map where it would be nice to slide in very quickly and get some shots off that we've come accustomed to in some of the more recent Call of Duty games. They also need to fix the aim assist slowdown. It needs some work at various ranges, because I feel like I lose a lot of aim assist at distance, and then when I'm up close and in someone's face, my aim assist is literally stuck and I cannot move it, which is very, very frustrating. Now let's come to the final verdict. I feel like I've kind of bashed the game a lot and gone over its weaknesses, but there are a lot of positives to it. I think it's a fantastic game. I'm very addicted to it. I was pessimistic to start with, but the more I played, the more I enjoyed it. I think that's a key thing for a lot of people to remember is you might not get along with it straight away, but the more you play it, the more you get into it. There are things that they could be improved, but I think it's still a good game regardless, even if they don't really change too much. I'd say it's in a better place than Modern Warfare Remastered is. The second beta felt far better than the first one, so it's already we've had a major improvement. I think that's down to the fact that they fixed the ADS after sprint times. Overall, I think if you have been straying away from Call of Duty for a while, or you enjoy Call of Duty a lot, this is definitely a game to get into. If it's been a while and you're looking to get back into the series, I think this is the one to do it on. It's great fun, it looks great, it sounds great. I'm very addicted to it. I think there is something for everyone in this game. Just in general, there's a lot that you can find to be enjoyable, like the idea of the divisions is nice because you can't have the most OP setups as you might have done previously. Like, you can't have all the steroid perks like sleight of hand, running around fast, being quiet, and Ghost. I think also the fact that you have to get 5 kills to get a UAV also makes Ghost less important, so you don't have to constantly run it. And even though I was saying I don't think that's a good idea, making it a 5-kill streak to get a UAV, I'm actually kind of getting to a point where I'm thinking, actually, yes, that is a good point. I still believe that if you're on a team with really bad players playing against good teams, you're going to get absolutely slaughtered, and that will kind of escalate even more because having that UAV so low meant that even a good player on a bad team could get it and neutralize the opponent's UAV. I don't think that's going to be as common as maybe I feared first off. I would recommend getting this game. I think it's definitely a purchase that needs to be made this year. It's going to be a top FPS title, and well, World War II speaks for itself. I love the genre, I love the whole thing, and I'm looking forward to getting it in November. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do drop a like rating. Make sure you subscribe for any more World War II content you might want to see, and I'll see you later. Peace out.